Okay, by now you've hopefully watched the introductory videos for the course, sort of have an idea of how things are going to go, and you've read the stories already. So, spoiler alert, preferably you'll not watch the videos until you've read the stories, because I don't want to give things away, especially the lottery, because it's kind of a suspenseful story. And the whole point of a literature class is, of course, to read, right? So let's get that taken care of. But I'm going to start talking about the lottery first. And the first thing, I'll probably do a couple of videos on the lottery, and I want to start by talking about irony. And you can find irony defined in your list of literary terms. But it's sort of, something that is surprising. I think the textbook defines it as, saying one thing but meaning another. And when does that start? When do we have a sense of that irony in the story? Well, I guess we don't have a sense of the irony in the story until the very end. Although what's ironic actually begins with the title, right? Because the title is called The Lottery. And what do you think of when you think of a lottery? Well, we live in the United States. There's the Iowa lottery, right? There are lotteries in all of the states. And what happens if you win those lotteries? Well, you win thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, or depends on what kind of lottery you're playing. Is that the case in this story? No, it is not. So that's ironic, right? The title is suggesting one thing, and then you're totally not prepared for that. And I'm sort of curious how many of you have read the story before and how many of you are brand new to the story, and maybe you can drop a comment in the discussion thread talking about your reaction to the end of the story if you'd never read it before. But the title of the lottery is ironic, right? I also think that the setting is ironic. By the setting, it's also going to be defined in your literary terms. We mean the place and the time that this is set. And this seems like a pretty idyllic place, right? Everyone seems to get along. I mean, it's a small village. They're gathering together as a community, so it seems to be a pretty nice place to live, the other 364 days of the year, except for June 27th. So the setting suggests one thing, that these people are happy, that this is no place is perfect, but we get this idea that things go pretty well in this village. And is that the case? Again, no, it's not. So the plot of the story is sort of in contrast with the setting, right? The setting suggests one thing, but then the plot carries out something quite differently. So that's another point of irony in the story. One of the creepiest things about this story, I think, is in the very beginning, and if I can find it, here we go. So I'm looking on, I've got our textbook out, right? There's a little bio of Shirley Jackson on 262. Story begins on 263, and in the second paragraph, we have Bobby Martin had already stuffed his pockets full of stones, and the other boys soon followed his example, selecting the smoothest and roundest stones. What happens at the end of the story? What happens to the winner, quote, of the lottery? Well, that's going to be another video and another discussion, but we assume that she's stoned to death, right? So that they are going to kill her by throwing stones at her. So here's a question for you. Why choose the smoothest and roundest stones? Okay, if the purpose is to kill someone, why choose the smoothest and roundest stones? What are you doing by choosing those stones? Aren't you prolonging the process in a way? So I think that's also a little ironic and, unsettling. I think it's really creepy. First, that they're choosing these smooth stones, it's going to prolong the agony. And who are picking these stones? It's the children, right? So we think of children as being innocents, but that innocence is really corrupted in the story. Because at the end of the story, someone even gives one of the Hutchinson boys rocks at the very end, right, to stone his own mother. So nobody is safe. There's no innocence in this story. And I really find it weird that they choose the smoothest and roundest stones, when you would think what? You would choose like the heaviest and the most jagged and the stones that are going to do the most damage. So not only, this is an aggressive act, but it's almost a passive-aggressive act by choosing the smoothest and roundest stones. So that's a little bit of irony that I see in the story, and I think there's irony throughout, but those are the three main things. I think the title's obviously giving us some irony. We think one thing when we hear the word lottery, and then we get something quite different in the story. The setting is in contrast to the events of the plot, and these darn creepy stones. I think that's really ironic when we think about what the stones are used for. So that's all I've got for irony for now. I'm going to try to keep the videos a little bit shorter, and I'll give you another video on a few other topics in the future.